Some of the biggest security threats out there aren't what you'd probably expect. They're not always these super complex lines of code or crazy hardware exploits. Actually, some of the most effective attacks are hiding in plain sight. They target the weak spots in our own psychology, our physical buildings, and the very data we're trying so hard to protect. So let's pull back the curtain on these pervasive threats and really get a handle on how to build a defense that's just as comprehensive.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to look at three critical layers. First, we'll start with the most unpredictable piece of the puzzle, hacking the human. Then, we'll move on to locking down the physical world around us. And finally, we'll get into how to protect the ultimate prize, the data itself.
All right, so first things first, we need to get our heads around the core idea that connects all of this, the idea of a pervasive threat. What this really means is that security isn't just about protecting one single thing, like a server. It's about realizing that weak spots can pop up in every single part of an organization, from the people who work there to the very walls of the building. So what does pervasive actually mean in practice? Well, think about the smell of a big holiday dinner cooking. It fills the whole house, right? You don't just smell it in the kitchen. In the world of security, that means a vulnerability is never truly isolated. An attacker isn't just going to try the digital front door, they're going to check every window, every wall, and they'll even try to sweet-talk the people inside to let them in.
Okay, so let's dive into that first and honestly most exploited layer, the human element. See, attackers know that it's often a whole lot easier to trick a person than it is to break a really complex piece of technology.
So just for a second, when you picture a major cyber attack, what comes to mind? A hacker in a dark room, furiously typing code, right? I mean, that's what we see in the movies. But the reality? The most common element in a successful attack is something way, way more familiar. Get this, the answer is a staggering 98%. It's estimated that 98% of all cyber attacks involve something called social engineering. This has nothing to do with hacking code, it's all about hacking people. And that's really the heart of social engineering. It isn't about breaking code, it's about breaking trust. It's the art of psychological manipulation, and it's all designed to trick someone into doing something that just blows a hole in security, whether that's clicking a bad link or just handing over a password to someone pretending to be someone they're not.
So how do they pull this off? Well, this table lays it all out. Attackers prey on our basic human instincts. Take authority, for instance. If you hear, "I'm the CEO calling," you're probably not going to question it too much. Or urgency. A phrase like, "My meeting starts in 5 minutes," is designed to make you panic and skip the usual security steps. It's a calculated, psychological game of chess.
And, this quote really hits the nail on the head. These aren't just random scams. We're talking about carefully crafted performances by people who are, for all intents and purposes, absolute masters of deception.
Now, the number one way they deliver this deception is through phishing, which comes in a few different flavors. You've got your standard phishing, that's kind of like digital junk mail, sent to millions. But it gets way more sophisticated. Spear phishing is a personalized email written just for you. Whaling takes it a step further, targeting the big fish, like CEOs. And it's not just email anymore. Vishing is voice phishing over the phone, and smishing is when they try to get you via text message.
Okay, let's look at a real-world example so you can see exactly what I mean. This fake invoice? It's a classic business email compromise, or BEC attack. It looks pretty legit, it claims you've been charged a bunch of money, and its whole purpose is to make you panic. And the goal? To get you to call that phone number, which of course connects you right to the attacker, who will then try to get your credit card info to process your refund. It's simple, and it's incredibly effective. So we've seen how attackers can just waltz past digital defenses by targeting people. But what if that fails? What's to stop them from, literally walking through the front door? And that brings us to our second layer, fortifying our physical spaces. I mean, this is one of the most fundamental truths in all of security. You can have the best firewalls on the planet, the most amazing encryption, but if an attacker can physically get their hands on your hardware, it is game over. So defense really starts on the outside, at the perimeter. You've probably seen these posts outside important buildings and airports. They're called bollards, and they have one very simple, very important job: to act as a physical barricade and stop a car or truck from being used as a battering ram. It's a pretty low-tech solution, but it is an incredibly effective first line of defense.
Okay, so once you're past the perimeter, you've got to control who actually gets inside. Now, we all know about regular keys, but they're a huge risk. Think about it. If a key gets lost or stolen or someone makes a copy, your security is shot.
That's why electronic systems like keypads and access badges are so much better. They let you grant access, and, just as importantly, you can revoke access in an instant.
But, barriers and locks aren't enough on their own. You also need eyes and ears, and that's where sensors come in. They can detect changes in the environment in all sorts of ways. For example, infrared sensors. They look for body heat. Microwave sensors are great for watching over big open spaces, like a warehouse. You can even use ultrasonic sensors to tell when someone gets too close to a valuable object, or pressure plates to detect a single footstep.
Now, what's really cool is how much variety there is in just one type of sensor. An active infrared sensor, for example, shoots out a beam of light and knows when it's been broken. It's basically that tripwire you see in spy movies. A passive infrared sensor, on the other hand, doesn't send anything out. It just sits there and detects the heat energy that a person gives off, which makes it perfect for motion detection.
All right, so we've covered the people and we've covered the place, but what are we really protecting inside that building? Well, that brings us to our final layer, the data. This is what you might call the digital crown jewels, and it's almost always the attacker's ultimate goal.
Okay, so here's a really critical concept to get. Data exists in 3 different states, and you have to protect it in each one. First, there's data at rest. That's anything just sitting on a hard drive or a server. Then you have data in transit, which is data moving across a network, like the internet. And finally, there's data in processing, which is when an application is actively using it.
Look, not all data is created equal, right? You wouldn't protect a public press release with the same level of security as, say, your company's secret formula. That's why organizations classify their data. Confidential is for the absolute most sensitive info. Private might be for employee records, where you only get access on a need-to-know basis. And critical data is the stuff that, if it vanished, could bring the whole company to a grinding halt. This whole system helps decide how much protection each piece of data gets.
So, how do we actually protect all this classified data? Well, here are 2 really clever ways. You've definitely seen data masking before. It's when a website only shows you like the last 4 digits of your credit card. Tokenization takes that idea a step further. It actually replaces your entire credit card number with a totally random, useless token. The real number gets stored away separately in a secure vault. That way, even if the token gets stolen, it's completely worthless.
So, we've gone through hacking humans, fortifying buildings, and controlling data. And here's the most important part. None of these things work by themselves. A truly strong security strategy has to be a layered, holistic defense.
So, what are the big takeaways here? First, always remember that threats are pervasive. They can come from anywhere. Second, the most common target isn't your tech, it's your people. Third, physical security is the foundation that all your digital safety is built on. And finally, it's all about the data, which needs to be classified and protected no matter what state it's in. The bottom line is, there is no magic bullet. Real security is all about layering these human, physical, and data defenses together.
So I'll leave you with this one last thought. It's really easy to focus on locking your digital front door, your firewalls and your passwords. But real security means asking a much bigger question. Are the windows, the walls, and most importantly, are the people inside just as secure?